Good afternoon, Xbox Nation. Welcome to this week's episode of the Xbox Factor podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Mr. Boomstick XL, and my goodness, do we have an unbelievable show planned for you, especially if you are in the Microsoft camp looking for the hottest information in gaming. We're going to be bringing you that for 2+ hours of the best Xbox show you can find on YouTube. Now, I say that facetiously because there's no one better than RDX, but we have to give Dealer and those guys super props because obviously, even as a content creator, I look forward to Tuesday evening just like you guys and gals. So let's get into, of course, our panel today. First up, you know him as being not only an incredible content creator, he is also someone that refuses to play Silent Hill in VR and is someone that has made his round to almost every podcast that I produce. Please welcome Zemi Games.
Thank you so much, Boom. Super excited to be here. After looking at these topics, it has me so excited. As soon as I jumped into the podcast or before the show, you were like, man, I can just tell from your voice you're already excited. And yeah, I am. So cannot wait to dive into these.
Well, listen, thanks so much for being here. Yes, we have 7 massive topics on tap for today's show, and there's probably a good chance we're not going to get to at least half of them because, I mean, some of the information I was able to pull while writing this show has been nothing short of eyeball bulging. But you know what? Speaking of bulges, let me introduce someone that is going to be guesting on today's show. You know him as one of the raunchiest but most amazing community members that we have. He produces his own content each and every week in Gaming After Dark. Please welcome the very bodacious Noof Nukem.
Boom, boom, kaboom. It's Noof Nukem in the Xbox Factor podcast room. And I can't remember, Boom. I think this might be the first time I've ever joined you on this particular
I believe
podcast because I'm normally working. Today just happened to be my day off, and you hit me at a great time. Second off, you got 5 thumbs down already, so I'm assuming that's because I'm in the room. So, boo. But you do have 45 thumbs up and clicking. Second thing I just noticed, Zemi, I don't know if you've ever noticed, or perhaps this was intentional, but yeah, I noticed your name backwards is I'm Easy.
Oh,
is that intentional?
No. No.
That is funny.
There you go. See, Noof Nukem at prime form early in the morning. Thanks for having me, Boom. Can't wait to get into the show. The topics are lit. The chat's already going. Let's do this.
All right. Well, listen, first of all, thanks so much for being here, taking the time to hang out. Love working with you, Noof, and of course, love what you do with this community. And of course, now we have to get into a bit of a serious note. As you can tell, one of the founders of the Xbox Factor podcast is not here. And of course, I'm talking about my brother from another mother, even from another country, the Welsh gamer. Now, normally, as a showrunner, as a host, I run a Family First channel. And I also run a channel where if you are having personal issues, you are, of course, encouraged to take care of those personal issues and sometimes even personal demons before coming on to this show, because there is no one that works with me that is required to be here. They are asked, they are invited, and of course, it is a pleasure to have them. And upon his request, the Welsh gamer has requested that I be forthcoming to his absence. And even though I feel a little uneasy on doing so, I do have his permission, and he has asked me to promise that I would explain his absence, a significant absence in the last couple of weeks. And whether you know it or not, and I think he has said this live on the air, the Welsh gamer suffers from depression. And I don't know the level of anxiety or demons that he does have. We have talked privately, but he has apparently relapsed a bit, where he is uneasy about being on the air, and he just needs some time to put things back in order. So I would ask, as a friend to this community, that you reach out to him publicly and through DM and encourage him to take all the time he wants, that he needs to feel better, and that if he trusts as transparent as he's been on this air about helping others, he just might need a DM or two to kind of put him on the right path. So if you are someone who enjoys what he brings to the show, which he does bring a significant amount of importance to each show that he's on, reach out to him. Say, hey, listen, we hear that you're not feeling well. Get well soon, brother. I'm here for you. And I'm sure that he would greatly appreciate that. So, of course, I'll say it live on the air. Welsh, take all the time you need. Your chair is never going to be filled. And when you are ready, you'll come back and you will bleed green, the same as all of us that are here today on this show. So let's move on, of course, to why everyone's here. Now, before we get into the outstanding topics, as you can tell by the production value of this particular program and the other two shows that I have done, that I do weekly, the level of value has gone up significantly. And in order to do that, because my skills in regards to artwork is limited, so I have taken to task of asking the graphic god who is responsible for every intro that you now see, every border you now see on every show, and every piece of artwork that accompanies the Double Barrel Gaming channel on YouTube. And I just want to do a public notice for his particular site that he owns and operates in the it's xboxgamerpicks.com. And of course, not only is Jay one of the best artists I've ever come across in my entire life, his skills are legendary. And with all of that, he is one of the most humble human beings I've ever met. And he is someone that understands that money can be and is in 2020 sometimes hard to attain, and he understands that even though he does have massive skills, that people are limited to how much they're willing to spend on original artwork. So I want to encourage everyone that if you like what you see, if you are someone that is an up-and-coming content creator, and you want someone that you can depend on, I could not recommend anyone more highly than I do the graphic god. His artwork is second to none. His prices are extremely reasonable. And of course, at the end of the day, he's one of the most kindest, gentlest human beings on YouTube, on social media. So if you're interested, you can head down to the information on this show. All the show notes will contain all of the links that you can reach out to Jay, and you can hit him up on Twitter. You can hit him up through a DM on Twitter, or you can even email him at xboxgamerpicks.com and explain exactly what you're looking for, and he will work wonders for you. But okay, so listen, commercials are out. Encouragements are out. We are going to get into, of course, the Xbox talk. Now, I'm going to tell you this. I get excited for each show that I do. But I'm going to admit something on the air here. When it comes to the Xbox platform, when it comes to this particular show, I kind of spike that from going from like maybe 100% to 125%, because I love the Xbox brand. It's the brand that I play the most. And this particular show has me tickled pink because there is so much information. Now, if there's one thing that I can say about the last 48 hours concerning statements of both our good friend Clobriel and, of course, the leader of all leaders, Phil Spencer, I would say that it's a very exciting time to be an Xbox gamer. Now, Twitter has once again been set on fire, and this happened Tuesday afternoon when we heard from Phil Spencer talking about the initiative and Daryl Gallagher's work on something old. In fact, here is exactly what Phil Spencer had to say on the matter. Great update today with D. Gallagher, Matt Booty, and the team at the initiative. Incredible talent studio challenging themselves to do new things with old things in new ways. Now, this statement is clearly referring to the project that they're currently working on. It's also the same product or project that Phil Spencer said that we would get an update in 2020. So, not to be outdone, industry insider, and again, friend to all Xbox fans, community member extraordinaire Clobriel made a follow-up post to Twitter, and this is what he had to say that sent the masses buzzing with excitement. As a refresh, here's a quote from Phil at E3 2018. I think Daryl really loved his time at Crystal Dynamics reworking Lara Croft and Tomb Raider. We were talking about some things in our past that might be interesting, things that might go that we might bring back, that we might go and work on. Now, at face value, the uninformed or, of course, the casual audience may not pick up the subtle double talk here, but many in the community took this information and immediately thought of the rumored Perfect Dark that has been whispered to be in active development for quite some time. Now, before I get to the panel, I need to say this publicly. If you are someone that feels that an older IP may or may not be worth bringing back, I have to say that you have to take a step back and look at the overall big picture. And I bring that up simply because, like I referenced RDX in the opening of today's show, this week's RDX, Colt Eastwood said that, and he said it publicly, and he was very clear about his statement, that he does not want the initiative to take on an older IP, that he would prefer a new IP. And even though I respect the absolute shit out of Colt, and I think that he is one of the finest community members, not only on that panel, but in the community itself, I would disagree, and here's why. The first Perfect Dark saw its release on the N64 in 2000. Okay, that's 20 years ago. Okay, we had a follow-up release on the Xbox 360 as a launch title, and that came out in 2005. It's been now 15 years since we heard anything of Joanna Dark. Now, the new Perfect Dark, if this in fact is what they're doing, will not even resemble the OG Perfect Dark, and apparently it's going to move from first person to a third person action stealth title, whereas the originals were done in first person. Very similar to like GoldenEye, for instance. Now, I'll say this, without a proper Splinter Cell or a Siphon Filter, one of my favorite Sony IPs that I'm hoping comes back at some point, we went an entire generation without a stealth type of game. And I think, and I'll get the panel's opinion, I'll get the opinion of the chat, a reimagined Joanna Dark on the level of, like, say, what they did with Tomb Raider, with Rise. If you look at, first of all, out of the 3 Tomb Raiders that were done by Crystal Dynamics, the one that stands out for me personally is Rise. Rise of the Tomb Raider is a visual masterpiece. It has taken Lara Croft in a way that I never thought I could ever see possible. So what I'm saying is that at this point, with the franchise being removed 15 and 20 years respectively since their releases, I think it's fair to say that there are at least 2 to 3 generations that don't even know who Joanna Dark is as a character. So they could logistically reinvent the wheel with this character, put out a game that's violent and dirty and dark, and make it one of those epic romps that you will want to play through. And of course, add that multiplayer aspect to that Microsoft is known for doing with their first-party games. And obviously, with the initiative, with the talent that is over there, I can only see 90 metas in my dreams. But what I want to get into is, of course, I'll go to our guest first, Noof Nukem. See, Noof, I want to get your opinion on this simply because, like I said, people were kind of being a little, let me just say, disrespectful to Colt, and I thought that was wrong. He's entitled to his opinion. He publicly said he would love to play a Daryl Gallagher produced, Joanna Dark, because he obviously has You can compare it to what this man has done before in bringing back the Tomb Raider franchise, which without even trying to sound facetious, was dead. It was a dead franchise, and it was an overused franchise. And this dude and what they did with his team at Crystal Dynamics was reinvent the wheel. And because Joanna Dark is a character that a good portion of the current gaming community has no idea even exists, do you feel that it's worth Microsoft to bring back an older IP and give it not just a fresh coat of paint, but redesign it from the ground up?
Oh, how people love to twist the narratives and say something doesn't matter when it ultimately does. It just sounds like the right wing attacking the left wing all over again. And let me just say, you know what? Perfect Dark. Look, I can explain this long absence, okay? I know exactly what's been going on here behind the scenes, and that is Joanna Dark is now dating Sam Fisher, and they're making Dark sphincter smell. That's what they're making. No, in all seriousness, guys, get the jokes out of the way. Look, I would be very excited if this franchise come back. But at the same time, I want to get this out there as well. I'm a bit of a fraud because Perfect Dark is one of those few Nintendo franchises for some odd reason that kind of eluded me at the time it came out. And just recently I started getting back into it, but I never finished either one of the games. So I want to get that out of the way before I kind of go off and sound like I'm this Perfect Dark expert when I am not. But I do understand the importance of the game, the character, to its fan base as Microsoft with an IP moving forward. Joanna Dark has a ton of potential. Consider it, it's kind of like if you wrapped up Halo and James Bond all in one, essentially. And we all know that Perfect Dark was a spiritual successor to GoldenEye in many ways. So, like I said, if they are able to bring this game back, whether it's third person or first, and that could be interesting because the game's notoriously been a first person shooter, and I'm hearing rumblings of obviously the third person aspect. But again, there's a solid character, there's a great foundation. I think if they bring out a game like this, especially done by a studio with as much talent as the Initiative, I can't see how they could go wrong because they will have a character that many people can identify with. Like the older fan base will know immediately what Perfect Dark is and what it stands for, and would love to see the character come back. And then you have the other side of the coin, where you would be introducing essentially a new IP to many. Like, it wouldn't be a new IP, but for a lot of people it would be a new IP. Like you said, a lot of people don't know this character, they don't know the back history. So it's a little easier to jump out of the gate when you're making a new game with a recognizable franchise as opposed to just coming out and taking a shot in the dark, so to speak. And I don't know if the Initiative, obviously their studio is going to be really big and they might be working on multiple projects, but I don't know if they can essentially come out of the gate and afford to work on something completely new and have it fail. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think they stand a better chance with all the money invested if they at least go out to at least kick off and show what they can do. We obviously saw what Daryl Gallagher and the team at Crystal Dynamics obviously did with the Tomb Raider franchise. They turned it on its head, but they turned it on its head for a better. Like, that's one of the franchises that completely did like a 180. And became better for it, because Tomb Raider aged terribly over the years, the older franchises, graphically, mechanically. But man, when they did that Tomb Raider the Tomb Raider back in, I think it was 2013, the first game came out, the remake of the franchise, they kept everything intact. They kept the exploration, but the difference was the graphics, the fidelity, the lifelessness, the realism, everything just improved tenfold. As the series progressed right up into Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which obviously wasn't involved in that one, or at least he was maybe to some degree, but we started to see more of the puzzle base. So they kind of went back a little bit. So yeah, I don't want to take up too much time on this. Everybody wants to jump in here, and you got a bunch of super chats flowing down here. But I'll just say, man, super exciting. I hope they do bring it out. If they don't, I'm not going to sit here and cry over it. But if they bring it out, let me say I'll be one of the first people in line to buy it.
Well, listen, I mean, first of all, great points. And I agree 100% with you, simply because this is, again, I want to stress, you said something that really, that kind of made something click in me. You said that this may be a new franchise to some. And that is correct. When you have an IP that has laid dormant for 5 years, you might be able to get someone like, holy shit, I never heard about this person. What game is this? But when you have a franchise with basically limitless potential in the Perfect Dark, I mean, because the lore is there. right? Now obviously with it being a reboot of sorts, we're going to see maybe a different origin story for Joanna Dark. You know, maybe we're going to get to see behind the scenes of how her father was first involved in this, and then she became involved. You know, there are a load of options, and basically it's a clean slate in my opinion, simply because again, since its original release in 2000, which is 20 years ago, and then the follow-up, which, you know, it actually it did pretty well. They reviewed pretty well, is 15 years removed. 15 years in video game, in the video game realm is 100 years. You know what I'm saying? How many characters and new IPs have happened for 15 years? It's limitless. How many new things have come and gone, and to have a character that Microsoft owns, and have a character or more so a genre that has been extremely underused this entire generation, and to have that possibly brought to fruition, it would be amazing. But you know what, Zemi, I'm going to get to you first, but let me just read some of these super chats. First of all, Smuzz246. Dude, thank you so much for being here. And also, thank you for the $5 super chat. He says, as someone who suffers from the same thing, family and friends are everything, and we need you even if we don't say it. Boom, do a great show for Welsh. And yes, we certainly will, dude. And listen, I'm glad that you are here, and that you obviously you can hang out at any time you want, and we will help you and power through anything that's giving you a hard time. Sin Vendetta drops a $5 super chat. He says, when the initiative was announced, I was expecting them to make a AAA IP, and I'm still expecting them to. I think that's what Xbox needs. Now, I just want to expand on that. And the reason why I want to expand on it, first of all, thank you so much for your comment, dude. And it does make sense. I have said this publicly, and I could be 100% wrong. The talent pool that has come and laid their roots into the initiative is on a spectrum that has never been seen before in gaming. And there is just no physical way that they are only currently working on one project. I would dare go in front of this, lie on the tracks, and dare say that they are working on at least 2 to 3 projects. Now, I don't know how far one of them is from the other, but I can guarantee you that multiple projects are in production. Now, whether that's pre-production, whether that's current active development, whether that's just someone sitting with a pen and paper and writing down ideas, I couldn't tell you. I'm not a developer, but that's my opinion. And real quick, another super chat has come in from Mr. Tushy. Thank you for the $2. He says, 165 people watching, hit that like button. Yes, I would appreciate that. We are now at 200 people watching live. And if, of course, you are enjoying this, it would be greatly appreciated that you do hit that thumbs up. And I'll say this, and I'm not ashamed to say it, if you are not liking my voice or anything that I'm talking about, I encourage you to hit the thumbs down button and just go about your business. And that's perfectly fine. And, of course, if you are new to the channel, I want to say welcome. This is a Xbox show, but everyone under the sun is welcome to come and hang out. And I can guarantee you sub this channel, you will not be disappointed, because I do 3 live shows a week, and they're all kick ass. I'll say that myself. But Zemi, I want to get your opinion on this, brother. Okay, first of all, we know how important new IPs are, especially going into the next generation. But at the same time, does it make sense for a team that was literally built only a couple of years ago to kind of get their sea legs, so to speak, of working cohesively together and building upon an IP that Microsoft has laid dormant for 15 plus years? And then once that's out and it's unbelievable and it's a 93 meta, is there a chance they could move on to making a new IP, or at the same time be talking about making a new IP? What are your thoughts on that, dude?
Well, I guess to start off, let me start off with the Colt Eastwood statement, in the sense that, in some ways I can somewhat see where he's coming from
Oh
with
yes,
him wanting a
absolutely,
brand
for
new
sure.
IP. He's wanting, probably something very, very well polished, and maybe even something that's like what you would get over on Sony's side, like from like Last of Us or Uncharted or something like that. Like that's probably what he's looking after, and I absolutely agree with that. But with that being said, you can get that out of this Perfect Dark franchise if you do it the correct way. If it's a complete reimagining, and not, necessarily, like a remaster or just a sequel or whatever, it may be, which is exactly what I think this Perfect Dark game is going to be. I think it's going to be very much of a reimagining. It's going to be a fresh take on everything. That way, gamers, old will enjoy the nostalgia of it. And then, hopefully they'll enjoy the new story and the new outlook on the characters and everything like that. And people like me who I know what Perfect Dark is. I've just never played it. We'll be excited to jump in, as it will be, like, Noof said, pretty much like a brand new IP for them. But what I think is really, really interesting is breaking down both of these statements. Like the first one, the tweet from Phil Spencer, where he says challenging themselves to do new things and old things in a new way. I mean, for me personally, that just gets me excited, regardless Perfect Dark or not. That gets me really excited, because it just kind of shows that whatever they're working on is going to be extremely innovative and fresh for the gaming industry. We're hopefully going to see some things in the game that really have probably never been done, or if they haven't been done quite in the same way, which gets me very, very excited. And of course, some people could argue that the old things in the new way, he's talking about old games like Perfect Dark with like a fresh coat of paint. But I think the second statement from 2018, his quote, is very, very more important, where he says, we're talking about some things in our past that might be interesting, things that things that he might go work on, specifically speaking of Daryl. I think this is also important, because what he's basically saying there is, just like how he's doing with Ninja Theory, just like how he's doing with all these other studios, he's giving the initiative the right to do what they want to specifically do. And I'm sure one of those games that Phil brought up to Daryl was the Perfect Dark series. And of course, Daryl, coming from Crystal Dynamics, working on the Tomb Raider, he enjoyed that franchise. And Perfect Dark is very, very similar in the sense of Tomb Raider, with a strong female lead. Yes. So he could very much have wanted to do that franchise as a first go. He is the head of the initiative, after all. He may have wanted to do that as a first go because that's what he's most comfortable with. It's an old IP that a lot of people would probably want to see rebooted. So I could definitely see, overall, the evidence is really there, pointing that they very much might be working on a Perfect Dark game. But overall, I think it's a smart choice if they are working on this game. Of course, they can be working on other things at the same time. Most studios do. Right. Right now, Bethesda, I guarantee whenever they were working on Fallout 4, they were already going to the drawing boards and talking about Elder Scrolls 6. They were already talking about Starfield. All sorts of developers do this. Of course, they're still looking at what their next project's going to be. And I think Perfect Dark is perfect, man. I really want to see this game happen. I want it to be a reimagining. I want it to be a third-person game. I would love to see like Tomb Raider graphics. It really has me excited. Maybe some Splinter Cell gameplay. That would be absolutely fantastic. A little bit of stealth. But overall, I don't. I think, obviously this is all speculation. Nothing has been 100% confirmed, but we keep hearing about Perfect Dark. So it just makes you wonder, like, it's probably definitely happening. I think the initiative are perfectly built for this. They have a lot of talent. It is an old IP, but if they do it correctly and if they do it in the right way, they can do it so fresh and so new and so innovative that it pretty much comes off to like a new IP for a lot of people. We've especially seen this in movies, with like old movies being redone, and a lot of like the new audience coming in never even knowing that there was previous movies of that franchise, right? And they can do that with Perfect Dark. So I guess just in closing, I'm really excited. I hope that they knock it out of the park, and I just can't wait to see what the initiative does. Anytime we ever hear somebody from Xbox say the words initiative, I almost like wet my pants. I think it's always really, really good, regardless of if they actually even give us anything whenever they talk about the initiative, because I think so many people are dying to know what they're doing.
Well, the one thing that I have to say, even Matt Booty said this publicly, I believe it was at XO, that we are going to be seeing exactly what the initiative is working on. Now, I'm not going to sit here and remotely suggest that the Perfect Dark reboot is going to be available for launch, which is only about 9 or 10 months away, depending on what month they release it in. Could they have, in fact, been working on this for quite some time? That's possible. But I certainly don't want them to rush. But I just want to put this out there real quick. Resident Evil 2 by Capcom currently has a 93 meta, right? It was critically and commercially super successful. There's no denying it. Final Fantasy VII, the reboot of that, I believe is going to have the outcome possibly better. And I bring these up because reboots do have a place in gaming when the love and care and respect for the character, the material, the lore, and of course, more importantly than anything, the longtime fan base is respected. And Perfect Dark has sat on the sidelines, in my opinion, long enough. And between the 20-year and 15-year spans on releases to current time, which is, of course, 2020, I think now is the perfect time, pun intended, for Perfect Dark to make a return. And I'm just, again, we have heard the words Perfect Dark going back all the way to 2018. And it's a subject that continues to be brought up. It is a subject that continues to garner, people's interest. And again, you said it, and I think some people in the chat have even said it. If it's done correctly, it could logistically be a new title, and I would consider it a new. I wouldn't say new IP, because it's an IP that currently exists. But if you remove everything from the original game and reimagine it in a way that is fresh, new, exciting, and is fun to play. And of course, they add that Microsoft flair, which of course I'm talking about the multiplayer aspect. This could logistically be a console seller. I mean, look, Aloy, Horizon Zero Dawn, one of my favorite games this generation. Yes, it's a new IP, but it's the character. It's the environment, it's the lore, it's the mechanic, it's everything about that particular franchise that like I said, I've been a very stout defender of that particular franchise. A lot of people don't like it, and if you don't, hey, that's okay. It's perfectly okay. But I think that the ramifications of Guerrilla Games making this IP, which is now a franchise for Sony. It's one of those pillars that are going to go up and hold up the PlayStation 5 moving forward. That same success, that same excitement for the fan base could be done and could be seen in the Perfect Dark franchise that has been laying dormant for quite some time. But listen, I don't want to spend 2 hours on this particular topic, because we do have a lot to get to. But listen, all I'm going to say is that and I want to say this publicly. Listen, I'm very good friends with Colt. I had an opportunity to hang out with him at E3 last year, and him and his wife are amazing people. He is an amazing content creator, and I am going to say this in his defense: if you disagree with someone, be a person. Understand that you should not attack someone for their opinions, because guess what? Someone's opinion isn't wrong. It's their opinion, and just because it doesn't jive with yours, that is what it's all about. We don't all have to agree. We don't always want to agree. And he had some really good points. I saw some things that people were saying to him that were nauseating, because he just didn't want to see an old IP come back. Well, guess what? That's okay. So don't be a dick about it and give your opinion. Like I wrote to him. If you can find my tweet, and it was I used every character in the book. But of course, it was like, well, even though we disagree, I absolutely respect his opinion. And I think other people who are being dicks should respect other people's opinions. But
yeah, and just let me add and say that, guys, no matter who you are, just remember that 90% of the podcasts and the people out there, we do this as a form of entertainment.
Yes.
That's first and foremost. And some people do literally take it to the next level entertainment wise. I think some people get lost in their own personas. But I mean, outside of that, you just remember we do this as a form of entertainment. That 90%, most of the time, it's a lot of the information is opinionated and it is speculative. Okay. So you always got to remember that. And keep that in mind, and don't take anything to heart until it actually becomes the dreaded word that I hate to say, fact. Sometimes we do these videos, and there is a lot of fact behind it, but things that we actually know. They've been broken by legitimate sources, not those constant sources we hear about that nobody really knows who the fuck they're talking about. But sorry, drop the F-bomb. But
okay.
But you know what I'm saying, right? So just keep that in mind and go easy on people. Colt is definitely one of the finest members in this community.
Yes, he is.
A lot of thought and work into his videos, like you do, Boom. He takes nothing lightly, and again, he's not this big arrogant fanboy that just runs off the mouth. Like I said, if you listen, that's the thing. A lot of people, when I hear them trash and Cold or guys like Dealer, they listen to about 30 seconds of a podcast or read 3 lines and they think they know exactly everything they're talking about. It's like, no, you know what? Read through it all, listen to it all, and then make up your own opinion. And remember, it's just their opinion. It might be different than your own, but that's okay. That's what this is all about.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. As you can hear, the sirens are coming to arrest whoever's being a dick about it, because that's the luck I have when it comes to these shows, of course. But listen, I want to move on because we have a lot to catch up on. This is going to be like I said, I have been so excited for this show that a good portion of what I did over the weekend. And I did a significant amount of research. I had to go way back to pull up some articles from 2018. And we're going to talk about something right now that has me very excited. Now, understand, this is going to be opinion based, talk, because I'm gonna put the breadcrumbs out for you guys to follow, and then whether you agree or you don't, that's perfectly fine. Now, as we discussed on last week's show, Phil Spencer has been making the rounds in Japan, and along with this grand information, the rumors of Microsoft acquiring a Japanese studio and or creating an initiative-level quadruple A studio in the region to bring that type of genre of games to the Xbox that they're missing from their portfolio is fact real. Now, not only did Phil Spencer tweet out that he was there talking to Japanese studios, he talked about playing unannounced games. And here is where it gets really good. Some unannounced titles, in fact, and I will read exactly what he wrote in the tweet, are really interesting. This is what he had to say. An amazing week in Japan talking Xbox Series X, Xbox Game Pass, and Project X Cloud with publishers and studios. Played announced and unannounced games, talked E3 2020, and discussed gaming's future. Always come away motivated by the amazing creative talent here in Japan. Now, this may not shake your memory, but I want you guys to ponder about what the unannounced Japanese Xbox Series X title or titles is that Phil could be referencing. Now, way back in 2018, there was a story that GameRant.com ran. And here is what that article had to say. Rumor, Vanquish 2 coming to the Xbox as an exclusive, according to self-described industry insider Marcus Sellers, who has earned the reputation of being fairly accurate and a pretty good leaker with video game related news. Now, while Sellers didn't offer any additional details on the game, no one, I mean, it's hard to imagine that you put yourself out there if there's not something. Maybe he heard from one of his sources. But the potential for Vanquish 2 to be an Xbox exclusive, more so an Xbox Series X exclusive, is unbelievable. Now, the reason why I bring that particular, I wanted to talk about this particular story very simply is because right after that story came out, which is going back to 2018. The original game, that Vanquish for the Xbox 360, became backwards compatible on the Xbox One, which looked amazing. Shortly after that, it was released on PC. And it's, again, these are just speculative hints, but I'm going to put it all together for you. After that, it was announced recently, towards the end of, I believe it was in early December, it could have been late November, that the Xbox and the PS4 will be receiving a double pack, Platinum's two best games being Bayonetta and, of course, Vanquish 1. And on the Xbox One X, it's going to run at 60 frames per second. So it's 4K 60. I mean, come on. Now, if you obviously could take a look at the screen, this is from the Xbox 360, and this game looked good right now. And so again, this is speculative, but the relationship with depending on who you ask, supposedly there's no longer a relationship with Microsoft and Platinum Games after the Scalebound fiasco, and I have to let you know that in fact is not true. Phil has talked about it, where that they do have a very good working relationship with one another. And I think it's safe to say that both sides of the coin that were there during the Scalebound, shenanigans are probably no longer with the company. So there's new management, there's new people in place. And quite frankly, we know for a fact that Phil Spencer did visit Platinum on one of those trips. Now, what was discussed, we'd have no idea. But I would like to speculate that could see the potential of a Vanquish 2, maybe even as a launch title for the Xbox Series X that's happening only in about 10 months. So, Noof Nukem, I want to get to you on this. First of all, Vanquish is a title that many people skipped out. And if you missed it, if you missed this game, I'm not going to say shame on you, because obviously, funds, money it doesn't grow on trees. And of course, more than anything, we don't have all the time to play everything. I mean, that's why we all have backlogs, right? But this particular game is one of those Japanese-esque kind of titles that screams anime, that screams Guyver, that screams Macross, that is just something that has been absent from the Xbox platform. And this is a title that is going to be re-released in 4K, running at 4K 60 FPS, I believe at the end of the month. Now, just out of curiosity, have you played Vanquish 1? And if not, are you considering picking up the reissue or the remastered version? And what are your personal thoughts on this possibly being an exclusive to the Xbox Series X?
Well, let me just say, when the original Vanquish came out, boom, I actually missed it. I can't even remember why I missed it, but I just did. So, oddly enough that we bring it up, because I've actually just started to go back and play it. And I'm just a couple of levels in, I think, so far. And the game is absolutely phenomenal. It looks great. It even looks pretty darn good for today's standards, running on the old 360 hardware. But the game is really amazing. It's got that precise control, that fast pacing that a lot of the Platinum games are known for. Also, it's a very cheesy voice acting as well. But I mean, it kind of reminds me. It's almost like Gears of War to a certain extent, but a little bit faster. If you took Gears and put them more in a bit of a mech suit sort of a thing, you kind of get the idea. But the play control and stuff, the firing mechanics are a lot more precise. The game has a lot of fast, with the jet packs on the leg, you kind of do the sliding motion. You have the slow-mo controls. So it borrows a lot of really key elements from some other successful games, but it stands out on its own too. Like I said, it has that great aesthetic. It has some really cool bosses. That sort of thing. So I think this game is phenomenal. I look forward to playing the remaster if and when it comes out. But most importantly, if they make a sequel, you can count me in on day one the next time around. I would definitely be all for it. I think they're on to something. They have a great franchise here. And if it should become an Xbox exclusive, even if it's a timed exclusive would still be a pretty huge thing. But the question is, do enough people care is my question, because Vanquish, as you just mentioned, was looked over and skipped upon by a lot of people, and that's never a good thing. It's very hard to turn a series around when it didn't build enough hype the first time. We could say that again about Perfect Dark. Like, those series have a lot of hardcore fans, but did it do enough? I guess it all depends on how they promote it and what sort of stuff is in the game that really makes it stand out. But like I said, it's a very crowded space out there for games and for buying new games these days. Obviously, Game Pass would be a huge platform for a game like this that might struggle to find an audience out the gate. But if it's on Game Pass, say day and date or something like that, it would be a huge move and would really bolster the franchise. So, like I said, Platinum is a very talented developer. We know that. They've made some really awesome games. I'm sure if they make a Vanquish 2, it's going to be dynamite. But the question is, can it reach the audience? Can you sway? You'll get the Vanquish fans guaranteed, but the question is, and this is for most developers these days, is can they sway the Fortnite crowd? Can they sway the Minecraft crowd? Can they sway those billions of dollars that are just sitting there waiting to be had by swaying the crowd that constantly likes a new IP for like 4 or 5 days and then they go back to the same old boring crap? So that's the question mark.
It's funny. You're absolutely correct. I think it's safe to assume that gamers can be complacent. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I mean it that we like what we like, right? And right now, the Battle Royale phase, or craze, I should say, maybe it's not as big as it was a year ago, but it's still significant. And we do have a significant amount of younger gamers playing Fortnite. What's interesting, though, and I'll get to Zemi's point on this, but I just want to come back to you for a second, Anuf. Is it interesting that out of nowhere, we're getting an HD 60 FPS 4K running version on the Xbox Series X with Bayonetta? And I mean, to me, it seems like they're kind of fanning the flames, because why release those two particular titles now? You see what I'm saying? Like, it seems as if there's just more than just a coincidence here.
Because that's how you promote a new launch. That's how you reinvigorate the audience. That's how you get demand up, is by reintroducing them to older titles that people may have missed. And a great way to do it, that's the whole reason these remasters exist, is to introduce those games to new fans who may have skipped out on the last platform. It's also to introduce a better version of said games to these fans and to the older fans who may have said, you know what, I could have enjoyed this game a little bit more, perhaps if it ran a little smoother or looked a little better. I mean, we do live in the 4K era right now, and you go back and play some of those 360 PS3 games, and it's kind of like playing the Switch. Everything's kind of blurry and dull, and you're having to get your eyes checked, thinking, is this the game or is my eyesight getting bad? Because everything's starting to look a little muddy here. And resolution does matter. I mean, frame rates, I think, are more important ultimately, but resolution matters. You want your games to look great. And, Vanquish, like I said, is that perfect title to reintroduce. Bayonetta, not so much, because I think Bayonetta had a fair bit of success. I think it was more successful overall, where I think, obviously, Vanquish is a shooter, and shooters don't do quite as well typically in other markets. They're better here, but again, it's because it's a sci-fi shooter, and it really is like there's nothing out there that I can really think of quite like Vanquish overall. So I think it's a great time to reintroduce the old fans, new fans alike back to that, and again, have the definitive version of the game, and let people digest it and sink their teeth into it before they come out with the next one, because that'll really drive hype. And you know what? You also help refinance those games. You help make a little extra money. Like, when it comes to remastering games, that's a drop in the bucket financially for a studio compared to making one from scratch. The engine's built, everything's there. You just gotta rework the resources and that sort of thing, and dedicate a team like Blue Point or whoever does a lot of these things. But again, at the end of the day, building a remaster is far easier than building a game from scratch, because things are there for you. You don't have to worry about a script writer. You don't have to worry about congruency. You just got to make it look and run a little better. So yeah, I think it's a great idea for sure, and look forward to it.
Now, I'm going to say this. This is certainly not one of the bigger stories for today's particular show, though I will say having an exclusive like Vanquish would not only move hardware, especially as a launch title, it would give the Xbox platform something that has been missing, a genre that has been missing. Now, again, it's not a JRPG, which a lot of people are calling for, but it's a Japanese-styled game where you don't get a lot of those. Now, yes, we are going to, with all the different deals that Phil has done, we're going to be seeing, the Final Fantasies, the Yakuzas, we're going to see all of those types of games coming to Game Pass, which is amazing. But this kind of an IP that's an action romp from start to finish, that has bosses that are as big as the screen, that has you rocketing on the floor, as if you're riding a skateboards with jet engines on them. There is a tremendous amount of potential here, and like I said, the theory of there's no working relationship with Microsoft and Platinum Games, that has been debunked. That does not exist. Now, I'm sure after the Scalebound incident, it was a little tight. We'll say that, but again, from what we've heard, those particular parties that were involved in this are no longer with the said companies, and you have to, put, what happens when a storm comes and washes away your garden? You have to put down new seeds, right? And you have to plant new seeds so you can build another garden. And I think that's what Microsoft and Platinum Games has done. And I'm looking forward to seeing that if this theory of mine comes to fruition or not. Now, Zemi, I want to go. Yes, sir.
Just before you head over to Zemi, can you imagine one really funny mod? Somebody kind of gave me this idea in the chat. Could you imagine if somebody made a mod for Vanquish? So when you do the actual butt slide, instead of using like your character, the main guy, it's actually a dog, and he's doing the butt shuffle.
That would be hilarious. Yes, that actually would be quite funny, as a matter of fact. Yeah, no. Well, I mean, listen, regardless of which way they decide to go, whether or not this is even a thing, this is a story that I had to actually go back and find, and that's what I do with these particular programs. I want, I don't want to talk about the same thing that everyone is talking about, and that's why I decided to bring up this Platinum Games Vanquish story. But Zemi, I want to get to your opinion on this. Actually, before I do, real quick, I have to thank JMO Series X with the $2 super chat. He says, "Happy Thursday, panel. Thanks for the hard work." Well, thank you for being here, dude. I definitely appreciate that very much. Zemi, look, here's the thing. We know that there is I couldn't give you the percentage. I don't want to say it's 25% or 50% or 100%, but there has been a significant vocal part of the Xbox community that has been asking for genres that are looked upon as being more Japanese-esque than they're not. And I think that Vanquish 2 from Platinum Games fills that void quite lovely. Now, we don't even know if, in fact, there is going to be a Vanquish 2. We're going based on a few different rumors and stories that I pulled. But with the Xbox Series X coming out in 10 months, we've already seen Sony lock up a second or third party exclusive for a year. And that game looks very, very robot-esque and looks very Destiny-esque. And of course, I'm going to buy that day one. But it really would do the Xbox brand justice if they had some of these smaller second and third party bangers, if you will, outside of the rumored three big ones that we're hearing, right? We know we're getting Halo. We have a suspicion we're getting a new Forza, whether that's Motorsport 8 or Horizon 5, and we have a good suspicion, just based on the release date of the PC version, we could be getting Gears Tactics as a launch title, along with a host of others. Having an action romp like this could really round out the launch list and make it, again, when you maybe on its own, maybe if it's just standing there alone, it may not attract the customers to want to buy it or sell a system. But when you start lining these different titles up and they're grouped together, you say, well, holy shit, this is really something special, because not only do I have my first person game, I have an RTS game, I got a driving game, and I got this third person action game. This could be that triple double that everyone is looking for. What are your thoughts and opinions on Vanquish 2 possibly being a launch title for the Xbox Series X?
I mean, I think Vanquish 2 it's definitely not impossible at all for that game to be developed. Of course, it was rumored back in 2018 they're doing a remaster. A lot of the times that we do see remasters done, we also, kind of see, a year, 2, 3 years out, they come out with like a complete, brand new sequel to the game. So I don't think it's impossible or a shot in the dark, if you will, that Vanquish 2 could become a thing. It definitely could. For a launch title, I don't know. I don't know how long they've worked on it or anything like that. I think it would, it would be good. It would be good for everyone on all platforms. If Vanquish 2, in fact, does become a thing, if it is a game that is released next generation, I definitely hope that it is not an exclusive. For the same reason why I would hope it wouldn't be an exclusive for PlayStation, because I want everyone on any platform, regardless of.
What about a timed exclusive?
Honestly, I really, for me personally, I don't think Xbox should waste the money on a timed exclusive for this game. I'm gonna be completely honest. Did it sell? Did Vanquish 1 sell? Absolutely. Did it sell amazingly? No. Do I think it's going to be a huge reason for people to go out and buy an Xbox because it has a timed exclusive for Vanquish? No, I really don't. I don't think it has that much of a appeal that it's that even a timed exclusive is going to drag people to to the store just to get an Xbox, right? And that's kind of the whole point or purpose of a timed exclusive, really. But I just don't really. I mean, ultimately, like if it was another game that had a timed exclusive, I would be a little bit more okay with it. But I don't think that it really works for this game. And ultimately, I definitely don't want it to see it be a general exclusive to begin with. And just to kind of touch on something that Noof was saying, I think one of the smartest decisions they could make would be if they did develop Vanquish 2 is put it in Game Pass on launch. Maybe here in 3 months after the remastered Bayonetta and Vanquish 1 come out, put that in the Game Pass as well, because that's going to get you a lot more appeal and bring people to that game than releasing it like in a more traditional way. I mean, unless the game has a fantastic story, absolutely amazing gameplay. I mean, because if the game is good, it will bring people, to it, regardless of whether you have to pay $60 or wait for a sale or whatever. People will buy it. But I just don't see Vanquish as one of those, heavy hitting titles that Microsoft should spend money on to get a timed exclusive or even just to get any exclusive. And I think it would be a lot better off in Game Pass ultimately than anything else. But, looking at it like this, though, E3 is going to be very exciting, though, right?
Yes.
I wish I was a fly just following Phil Spencer for like the last week, because I want to see all of these different games that he was playing and all these different studios he was talking to, all the wheeling and dealing that he was doing. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Vanquish 2 at next year at this year's E3. And I think a lot of people are expecting acquisitions. I think a lot of people are wanting to hear what Xbox is doing in the Asian market. I think it would be a huge mistake if Xbox didn't have Vanquish 2 on their platform, just for the simple reason, like, I may play it, I may not. I'm not huge into Japanese like style games, but a lot of people on this platform are, and it's something that has been heavily missed by a lot of gamers on the Xbox front. And so to get as many second or third party Japanese games, put onto the Xbox, I think is super, super important. And that's just another reason stacked onto a gillion right now why I think everyone is really excited going into this E3 is to see what Xbox is planning with the, second, third party or acquisitions in like the Japanese market.
I mean, listen, I agree with you to some extent, but I have to say that, when you are starting a new generation, which is what's happening with both companies, you need to put out your big guns. But with any big guns, you need support. And as great as the again triple double of a Halo, a Gears, and a Forza will do, there is something to be said about having other smaller or less known exclusives to pepper your main launch. And again, I can't say whether or not this would go directly into Game Pass. If it was a timed exclusive and they had some sort of a deal, yeah, sure, it could potentially be in Game Pass. I expect, a lot of the indie titles, because this is my theory. Outside of the third party games that you're going to get at launch for these consoles, and I think like Assassin's Creed Ragnarok or whatever it's going to be called is going to be one of those. I think you're going to see a new Madden as well, because obviously Madden usually comes out in August, and you'd be able to set something up where maybe even the new Madden is available with these consoles. Again, I don't know who has the marketing deals or not, but a game like Vanquish 2 as a timed exclusive, and hold on just a second, let's not just say time for time's sake. Let's just say maybe this game wasn't going to get done. Maybe Microsoft went to Platinum Games, they said this is what we were working on, and Microsoft is going to pick up the publishing on this game. Maybe they forward them some dollars. Now this could very well, you can actually see a Street Fighter V scenario here, where Capcom wasn't going to make Street Fighter V because they were on the ropes of bankruptcy in 2016. And what happened? Sony stepped in, and it's an exclusive, and it has been an exclusive. Now, granted, Street Fighter V on the PlayStation 4, whether you know it or not, is the worst selling in the franchise's history. And that's a fact, folks. You can look that up. It is the worst selling Street Fighter in the history of the franchise that dates back all the way to the 80s. And that's not good. But again, that game launched broken, and that's probably why it didn't gain any traction. So a game like Vanquish, that's going to see an HD remaster where it's going to be running in 4K 60. Both of them, both Bayonetta and Vanquish, are two revered titles that a lot of people overlooked. And again, I find it very suspect and suspicious that we would get these remasters in the same year that we're getting new consoles. And of course, we've heard rumors for years now that Vanquish 2 was in fact in development, and we had someone report on it that said that yes, it's going to be coming to the Xbox platform as an exclusive. So I'm kind of in the camp where the old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. Now, whether or not this comes to fruition, we're going to have to wait to launch. But again, this has been a fantastic topic. Again, I'm glad everyone is enjoying today's show, because the chat seems to be completely on fire. But I want to move on to the next topic. Now, in order to do that, I have to bring up a story that you are probably only going to find Double Barrel Gaming talking about. And the reason why I say that is because I like to bring up topics that are something that you have not heard on another show. Because again, even though Dealer and Colt and Zalker and even Mooch or any other the more famous podcasters that you listen to on a weekly basis, we may all talk about a particular situation, but we'll all talk about it in a different, fun way, which is why you guys and gals tune in. But this particular topic is something that I have not heard on anyone's show, and I have to bring it up because it's a big deal. We're going into a new console generation, and this is something that needs to be spoken about. Former Chief Marketing Officer Jerret West returns to the Xbox to head the marketing campaign for the Xbox Series X, and considering that both marketing and messaging has been Microsoft's biggest Achilles heel this entire generation, I'm personally very excited to hear this news. Now, if you followed Microsoft and the Xbox during the 360 era, Microsoft had a very apparent edge with marketing. And the 360 was a household name and was a brand that everyone knew and respected even after the Red Ring of Death scenario. Now, back then, Jerret West was the director of marketing, and in 2011, he left his role at Xbox to become the vice president of digital marketing at American Express. Now, from there, he went on and joined Netflix in a similar capacity. Well, this past December, towards the end of the year, West left Netflix and came back to Xbox, and this is a fantastic situation that has been put in front of us, simply because he brings with him a wealth of knowledge, but more specifically, a wealth of Xbox brand knowledge. And this certainly, this new old acquisition, if you will, could be the step in the right direction that Microsoft is going to need to power them moving into the next generation. Now, this information originally came from Xbox Insider and friend to all on Twitter, as you know him as Clobriel, which we talked about him earlier. And this is what actually he had to say on it. He said, Jerret West, former vice president, head of marketing at Netflix, rejoins Microsoft as chief marketing officer at the platform. His team develops marketing plans for games, hardware, and services across the division. And he also thanks Jing Sama for the tip on LinkedIn that they saw this. Now, here's my question to the panel. And of course, I want to start with our esteemed and very fine guest in Noof Nukem. This is, again, a smaller story that you may not hear other podcasters talking about, but the potential for the ramifications of this hiring are tremendous, and it cannot be it has to be acknowledged and cannot be denied, because I think it's safe to say, without sounding like a troll, Microsoft kind of shot themselves in the foot a couple of times this generation. And yes, we're not going to talk about 2013 with the messaging and the marketing and the DRMs and all the other bullshit that we've all talked about for 100 years, but it's really interesting to know that they hire a guy that led the charge in the 360 era, which by all rights is and has been the most successful part or years in Xbox history. And to bring this guy back, to bring someone into the fold that knows the Xbox brand, that knows the Xbox community and what this brand means to us, is super important. Noof, in your opinion, how big of a deal is this?
It's big, but it's one of those situations that isn't quite cut and dried, right? I mean, I think any Xbox fan has been paying attention to anything over the past few years know that Microsoft's marketing, the way they presented their products, has been, in most cases, vastly different than the way Sony has gone about their marketing. But that's the problem, is that the markets tend to change. Your audience tends to change. Technology changes, and I don't envy anybody in the role, because by the time you think you got a handle on something, things change, and then obviously what you thought was going to be a hit becomes a miss. And I liken it to this: if you're not a leader, you're a follower. Now, the problem with being a leader is if you're walking on a farm, you're probably the first guy to tread in cow manure. But at the same time, if you're also the leader, you're the first guy to sit at the table and get your choice of the best cuisine at the table. You know what I mean? So Microsoft has steadily been the market leader and have certainly been a trendsetter, and they've been sort of leading the way. A lot of other people kind of sit back and follow, and they kind of learn from Microsoft's missteps, or therefore. So I don't envy what they're doing to a certain degree, but at the same time, you commend them, because again, they're trying to push the industry forward in a lot of ways that just make sense. It makes sense for them business wise. It makes sense for them from a gamer perspective. I mean, some people out there really, really can't stand the whole Game Pass thing. Now, I'm, again, that's you, Noof. No, I never said I can't stand Game Pass. I never said I hated Game Pass. I never said it wasn't good for gamers. I've never once said it.
It's just not something you're interested in.
I just said I'm a physical guy, so it just doesn't make sense for me. But I'm the anomaly. I'm not the rule here, right? And it doesn't make sense because, as I said to someone the other day, when I walked into the Microsoft store and they didn't have any physical games in there anymore, I felt it really defeated, because I felt that, like, I'm still a fan, and this is the way I choose to play my games, as a collector, whatever. And when they take it out of their stores, yes, I can still get physical games anywhere, but you guys don't know, unless you're going into the stores. I have seen it. I have seen how even the biggest retailers are scaling back the amount of titles in their store. They're getting harder to find. A lot of times now you're going to starting to go to online. I'm not a big fan of buying anything online. I prefer to go into the store and pick it up. Seeing at the EB Games level, they're having less and less copies of certain games. Some of the smaller titles, like a Plague's Tale, are becoming a real pain in the ass to actually go buy physically. Yes, I know you can now get that on Game Pass apparently, but again, I don't. And I'm getting off topic here, but I just want to say, like, I think this is good for Microsoft to have a guy with that experience. Experience when it comes to marketing is absolutely massive. And when you've dealt with various companies on various levels, that is huge, because you get to see the market from different perspectives. You get to see what works, you get to see what doesn't work. I think sometimes when you're in a certain role too long in any job or any position in life, is you start to put the horse blinders on after a while, and you can't really see or hear certain things because you just think, oh, we're successful. The next thing you know, you're fired or you're out the door working for somebody else, right? That's how it goes. You have to reinvent yourself. We see all the time the Coke and Pepsi reinvent themselves, and McDonald's tries to reinvent themselves. So again, they're trying to stay ahead of the trends. But again, marketing is so much different than it used to be, because it's not heavily reliant on radio and TV as much as it was. A lot of it is social media. A lot of it's through podcasting. And even now, it's through the streamers. Microsoft invested heavily on some of the biggest streamers in this past 6 months. They bring over, Ninja. They bring over 2 or 3 other people over to Mixer, which, while it's small baby steps, it's still huge for them, because we've seen their numbers grow. Some people are still going, well, since they come over to Mixer, his numbers are not near as big as they were. But that's because Twitch had a massive following to begin with. You cannot put the roof on a house until you build the freaking walls, people. That's how it goes. It takes time, okay? You've got to give it time. And we also know that Mixer went through a shitload of problems, technical wise and everything. Now it's starting to finally work. How many times did anybody try to watch one of Microsoft's own shows on Mixer in the last 3 years?
Terrible, it's awful.
It's constantly broke down on us. Like, you're like, okay, this is your service. You paid the money for it, and yours runs like a piece of crap. How can you expect people to want to watch it if you can't get consistency? But again, marketing, like I said, I think this is good. But again, it's one of those things you can't just come out and say, oh, it's amazing, he's going to turn the tides. But they've got a massive job ahead of themselves, because, again, they have new hardware. This is the 3rd console now within the last, 3 years or so, 4 years, because you've had the S, you got the X, now you got this. And you've got to convince a whole new generation of fans on why the Xbox Series X is the place to play your games. And that is the bottom line. Obviously, they need to sell consoles. They help sell Game Pass. Game Pass helps sell consoles. It's vice versa, so on and so forth, right? Microsoft doesn't care so much anymore that you buy the Xbox Series X or any of their Xboxes, as long as you are playing an Xbox-related product, whether it's PC or on your phone. They're making money. That's what they're all about. They want to make money. They want more ways for them to make money. They want more ways for gamers to play, because it just makes sense. It's pretty much common sense at the end of the day. I'm a console guy. I want the console, but you got to convince me as to why I need to drop that money on this console. You have to go into the stores, and you have to make sure that the parents, that the average person who doesn't watch Boone's podcast actually knows what the frig they're looking at when they walk into the store, because they're going to ask questions. I see all these Xboxes, but what is, and I hear it I'm not kidding, man. How many times do I go into a place at Walmart, you see a parent, and they're freaking clueless. They get a list given to them by their kid, and they don't know nothing. Well, does this game work on this console? Can you play these cartridges on the Nintendo DS? And you're just like, and then half the time, the staff that they hire at these places have no freaking clue either. They're like, and you're like, oh my God, let's just hire some potatoes to do at the store level, because these people are stupid, right? Like, hire some people to know what the frig they're selling in their store. It drives me nuts. It's on a totally another level. But anyway, my rant is over. I think this is good news for experts regardless, because he's been there, he's done that, he's worked with the big companies. Glad he's back in the fold. Let's see what he can do.
Well, I mean, listen, you have to, like I said, if you look at the moves that Microsoft as a company has been doing since Phil Spencer was given the seat next to Satya Nadella, and he was the one running the show, he personally has strived to build upon the failures early on in this generation, and he has done moves. And that's the thing. Everyone wants to think about what you did in the last 10 minutes, right? That's how this industry is. But you have to look at what Xbox has done as a platform and as an industry leader since the promotion of Phil Spencer. He has made this Xbox his Xbox. And what do I mean by that? All of the moves, right? Some of the biggest complaints that we all talk about on these podcasts, or we write on Twitter, or we write on Facebook, right? The system is underpowered. He fixed that, right? He releases the Xbox, the Xbox One S, which is a huge step up from the fatback. And then, of course, they released the Xbox One X, which is obviously still the most powerful console currently. They address the marketing, getting these marketing deals, something that they were very good at doing during the Xbox 360 era, completely went away. And in late 2018 and almost through the entire 2019 campaign, they were getting all of the biggest games marketed for Xbox. And a lot of those big marketed Xbox games are now in Xbox Game Pass. Right, so they spent the money. People went out and bought consoles. Yeah, okay. The numbers came out yesterday that they were 43% down. But wait, the Sony numbers are expected to be just as much, possibly even more down than the Microsoft numbers, because this is the end of the generation. That happens all the time. This isn't new information. But you have to look at what they're doing, more specifically what Phil is doing to right the wrongs and the failures. So, Zemi, my question to you is this. Phil Spencer gets promoted. He fixes the hardware issue with the S and the X, right? From there, they start building upon first-party studios, which they're currently up to 15, and we hear there's more on the way. Phil has said it. We know that they want to buy one in Japan. We've heard rumors that they want to make a quadruple A level initiative type of developer in Japan. We've heard that. We talked about that earlier. And now bringing back West into the scenario is a big deal, because he led the charge in all of the successes with the Xbox 360. We're going into a new generation that technically doesn't start for another 9 or 10 months, but at the same time, having someone in place this far in advance says that they're not just looking to exist in the PlayStation universe. They're looking to be the masters of the universe. I hope you He-Man fans appreciate that pun. But my question to you is this, Zemi, and I think I think it's simple enough. What are your thoughts on the addition to the marketing team, and could this be exactly the shot in the arm the brand needs before a major new push on new hardware?
Well, I mean, to start off, obviously Xbox's marketing has not been that good this generation. I think we all know it, whether we want to agree to it or not. It just has not been very, very good, right? PlayStation
consistent
has dominated
is a good word to use as well.
There you go. That's an excellent word to use. And I think this move has a lot of big potential. I think that they could have gotten anyone with, who's really, has a proven track record, that they know marketing. They have a great resume. Obviously anyone from that background would have definitely helped Xbox tremendously. But to see that they got Jerret West, who worked at Xbox for their marketing during the 360 generation, probably what a lot of people consider their most successful generation so far, they have that guy. But what's even more than that is that he previously worked as the head of marketing for Netflix. Netflix is a subscription. Xbox has changed their ideology to subscriptions. So in that way, in that sense, I think that they probably couldn't have maybe gotten a better guy. He's worked at Xbox before. He knows the brand. He knows how to market Xbox, games and consoles. He's familiar with the gaming industry. But then he also comes from the background of Netflix, which is probably the most successful video streaming, service out there that most people are subscribed to. They may have forgotten about it, but they're still subscribed, right? And I think that is huge, because like I said before, and I've said this on previous podcasts as well, Xbox has really changed the rules, right? They've changed their ideology. They're going for more of a service like Netflix with their games. And, they're coming out with new technology like xCloud, which, a lot of us do believe is going to kind of get bundled in with Xbox Game Pass Ultimate.
Yes.
And what xCloud is going to allow people to do is, regardless regardless of what hardware you have, it has the potential to let you play on any hardware. Eventually you might be able to play Xbox games just off of a smart TV. Eventually, obviously, smartphones, tablets, are kind of already moving to that front as we're speaking. But I think Xbox is pushing for more of an emphasis on their services next generation than probably any of us actually expected. And so I think that this is just another strategic move that Xbox has been making all of this generation to line up all their cards, and get ready for the next generation, because I definitely, obviously they're still going to come out with consoles. They're still going to release games the traditional way, at least for this generation, probably the next generation as well, but Game Pass is the best gaming subscription that has ever been made, right? It has the most potential.
Yes.
And it's selling like hotcakes right now. And so to get a guy that has experience with not just Xbox back whenever it was the most successful that it's ever been, but also have experience with services and subscriptions, taking the reins of Xbox's marketing, I think is a huge strategic move for Xbox to play. And I think it could have big potential. Of course, there's a lot of work. A lot of what Noof Nukem said, I completely agree with. There's a lot of work. Xbox could still mess this up, but they have all of the tools in their toolbox to knock this out of the park and get everybody's attention on nothing but Xbox going into next generation, which is fantastic. And I cannot wait to see all the other moves that Xbox is probably still making in the background that we haven't seen, that haven't come to fruition yet. But I think that their marketing stands a heck of a lot better than it did this generation. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited for next gen.
Well, you know what? It's funny.
I can add just one thing.
Yeah, please, come on in.
Add just one quick thing here, and I won't take long. You know who I really miss, guys, at Microsoft, and I don't think people say it enough? And this is one of the things that I personally find wrong, and it's kind of a marketing thing and kind of not. It's that while I agree that their executives are doing a pretty good job, and they've certainly turned the ship around quite a bit, like Phil and the rest of the game, I miss the guys like Steve Ballmer. I miss guys like
good
him.
Old Steve.
That dude was awesome. When he came out on the stage, he commanded it. He got you excited for stuff you didn't even know existed. Like, he was that kind of guy. He could sell poop to a dung beetle because he came out with conviction. He came out and, man, there was sweat flying off of that dude. Whereas I find the whole Xbox crowd right now, the one thing that I just don't like, and I suppose they don't need to be arrogant and cocky, but sometimes you do like a little arrogance and cocky when you know you got the best, or you got something. It's okay to be kind of like, you know what? Eat it. You know what I mean? Eat a biscuit. You know what I'm saying? Like, come out there and swing those big balls, because you just like it oozes confidence in your product, and it also gets your fans really excited. And I really miss that. I think that's the one little edge that my Xbox does not have that they used to, is that when they first came out, Xbox was the edgy system. Xbox had all these different games that other consoles really didn't have. They were pushing the envelope, and then all of a sudden now we got this watered down kumbaya. We got, we got to be nice with everybody kind of a deal. And I'm just not jiving with it. I know we've heard other podcasters say this in the past, but I'm not really jiving with it. I wish you'd just be like, you know what, we're going to kick in some teeth this gen. Ooze that confidence, you know what I mean? But hey, I don't want to go on a big rant, but I miss guys like that. I just wish they'd start hiring more guys who not only know the business, but the passion just oozes out of them. I mean, as long as you don't do something stupid and say something that's going to get you fired, and that's pretty easy nowadays. All you got to do is say 2 or 3 words, and all of a sudden you're wondering if your job's at stake anymore. But man, I really miss that kind of stuff, and I wish they get someone out there like that. Like, I love Aaron Greenberg, man. Greenie, you're awesome, dude. But sometimes it just Greenie does it once in a while, but he's more subtle, right? Like, Greenie will pop in a little, like we've seen his Twitter account, right? And every once in a while he'll blurb something out, kind of like rubbing it in, and that makes you laugh, so.
I mean, look, I agree with you to some extent. I kind of like the nice guy approach. I kind of like the persona that Phil has, but don't misunderstand the nice guy, facade that he puts up there. He's a businessman at the end of the day, and if you don't think that he wants to win, he wants to curb stomp Sony in the next generation, you're sadly mistaken. Now, I know that they've both him and Matt Booty have publicly said they're not looking to challenge Sony in their world domination, but behind, I mean, again, that's the public professional and courteous way to say that yes, we're going to try and kick Sony's ass, and that's definitely the truth. But it's going to be interesting to see where this hiring goes. And Zemi, you really touched on something that when I was writing this, I did not put one and one together, and because they pulled this guy away from Netflix, one of the biggest and most successful subscription services in the history of the planet, to have him come back with the wealth of Xbox knowledge and the fact that they have a Netflix style service in Game Pass, I cannot believe I didn't put that together. So that is a great thing that you brought up, and I definitely appreciate you bringing that to the table, because I didn't even put that one and one together, and it does make perfect sense, and it actually has me even more excited to know that this guy Jerret West is going to be in this position, because he's coming from a company that has seen record gains, and he's going to bring that wealth of Xbox knowledge and to the platform on. And this again, why this is more interesting is the timing. He signed on and probably immediately started working on the spiel, so to speak, on what's going to be talked about and publicized for marketing. And that's a year in advance. That's literally almost, again, if let's say, for instance, they do release in November of 2020, he was hired at the beginning of December in 2019. That's 11 months to really put your plan of attack together. And that to me, that's saying that they want to win. But look, it's going to be interesting. Certainly having someone in that position who we've seen have tremendous success pretty much everywhere he's gone definitely garners me as excited. But before we move on to the next topic, I want to just thank Dragon Wolf in the chat. He drops an outstanding $2 super chat, and he says, hopefully Microsoft will continue the all access program. They've already said publicly that in fact is going to happen. If you go and get an X through them, you can trade that X in for the an Xbox One X for the Series X. So that's confirmed. They are going to be moving forward. How much more forward, I don't know, but I know that you're going to be able to get that at least through the Microsoft Store. But I want to move on to the next topic. And this one over here, this is another good one. This is another really good one. A new rumor has surfaced regarding a new unknown AMD APU that could potentially, again, folks, this is speculative, potentially be the chip being used for the Xbox Series X, aka the Lockhart. And according to WCCF Tech, where I pulled this story, it's more powerful than expected. Now, listen, Dealer was on this show a couple of months ago, maybe last month, and he talked about how he has spoken to somebody. And Dealer has his connections. He knows a lot of people within Microsoft. For crying out loud, he had Mike Ybarra on his show. So as a matter of fact, he had the lead dude of designing what do you call? I think it's xCloud on the show last week. So he knows people. But here's the thing. There have been rumors for quite some time, and Dealer confirmed it on my show, that they are going to be launching with a 2 SKU attack. And this has been discussed by many other content creators. And what's interesting is this new leak. Now, the new information was posted by an industry insider who found some very interesting information that we're going to be breaking down for you right now. And the Lockhart, for the Lockhart, may have bigger ramifications than originally expected. Earlier this week, it was discovered by, and I'll pronounce it, it's it's underscore row game. Not like row gain for your hair if you're losing your hair, but row game like games we like to play. And he discovered a new unknown AMD APU. Now, this APU features an 8-core Ryzen CPU clocked at 4.0 gigahertz and a 16 gigabyte memory shared between RAM and virtual RAM. It also has a total of 12 gigabyte RAM and 4 gigabyte VRAMs, for making it up for a total of 16. Now, here's the GPU details that are unknown at this time. Rogames speculates that this could either be the Series S, aka Lockhart APU, or a new version of the Firefly APU, which powered the Sub-R Z Plus console. Now, the Sub-R console, that team has been disbanded as of last year. However, it looks more likely that this may in fact be Microsoft's unannounced console APU. Now, 3D Mark 11 and Time Spy scores have also been shared. And I'm just, again, understand something, folks. I'm reading verbatim from the article. If you want like detailed specs and understandable specs, you tune in for Dealer and Colt Eastwood. Those guys are where I go. I'm just reading verbatim. A lot of the stuff, I do understand it to a layman's term, but there's a lot of the stuff that I may not understand. So just understand I'm reading this verbatim, okay? The 3D Mark 11 and Time Spy scores have been shared, and they are not particularly impressive, placing the GPU on the same level of performance as a GX 980. This is, however, a private Time Spy score for the APU that is much better than the first one, and there could be a reason for that disparity between scores. Now, I'll say this. If this is indeed the Xbox Series S, a Lockhart APU, it will be more powerful than previously believed, as we've heard that they were targeting a 4 teraflop console to release at $299 US. As Rogames highlights, the Time Spy private score would place this GPU in the territory of RX 560, and that's currently between 7 to 7.9 teraflops, as opposed to the 4 that we're hearing. Now, of course, this may sound familiar to you guys and gals simply because we've heard rumors early last year that this supposed S console or Lockhart console was going to be slightly less powerful than the rumored 9.2 teraflop PS5. And it would be unbelievably difficult for Sony to be able to combat this if, in fact, this is true. Now, think about this for a second, folks. We keep hearing that the PlayStation 5 is launching at $399. I got news for you. I don't think that's true at all. I think what they're doing with this console, it comes in at $499. That's my opinion, and that's fine. I think that Microsoft is in a better position, more fiscal and financial position to take a small loss or just barely a loss on the Xbox Series X and launch that at $499. But what's interesting here is that if, in fact, the Lockhart is, 2 teraflops or 1.8 teraflops less powerful than the PS5, that could potentially be $499 or, of course, $399, and they launched that second SKU at $300, that is going to put a tremendous amount of pressure on Sony. And we've also been hearing that, and again, this is not the first time we're going to talk about this on this show, we've heard that Sony's launch titles may be littered with second and third party exclusive deals, that they may not have anything ready to go. Now, Bluepoint is working on the Demon Souls remake, which is supposed to be unbelievable. And of course, I will be buying that day one, even though I'm terrible at that game. I can't miss it, right? We've heard, and I've said it on the show, that the other second title is possibly Metal Gear Solid, and that's being done like Resident Evil 2 remake, where it's going to be redone from the ground up. I hope that's fucking true, because if that's the case, I'm going to be playing that all day and all night, because that's one of my favorite games, top 5 in my entire lifetime of gaming. I love Metal Gear Solid. But here's my question to the chat, and of course to my esteemed panel, and I'll start with Noof on this. Hypothetically, again, this is a rumor, so we have to go hypothetically here. We have to hang out in speculation town, which is not a bad place to be. Mm-hmm. If this newly discovered APU is in fact the Xbox Lockhart, and it's a near 8 teraflops, mm-hmm. and Microsoft's cheapest model, how much pressure could this how much pressure could Sony see from this two-pronged attack?
Again, this is where it all comes down to that marketing we were talking about, Boom. Because right now, like I said, it's based on the things that we're hearing. Again, all speculation, but it basically sounds like a slightly beefed up Xbox One X, right?
Pretty
It
much, yes.
still has a lot of the other elements, except obviously they're switching out the GPU, which obviously was a big bottleneck and one of the biggest letdowns of the Xbox One X itself. So, and the fact that you can basically play all of the Xbox titles, even on your older ones, kind of just, I don't know where this one even fits in other than it's just a price point competitive feature or something that you could promote to say that your new console, or at least one of your new consoles, is less expensive than the PlayStation 5. Like I just don't know. I don't even know what to say on this one. Like I personally think Microsoft is just better at putting all their eggs in the one basket, because at this point, Microsoft doesn't. They've obviously shown that while they appreciate you buying a console, it isn't their be all end all. It isn't like it isn't their ace in the hole, right? Because again, they're heading towards streaming. They're obviously banking most of their bucks on the Game Pass and that sort of stuff. So that's the big difference. And this is the one thing that stands out is Sony is very, very focused and seems still to be very content on you buying a PlayStation, a PS5. And that's why I think Sony is going to come in with the PS5, maybe, like I said, a little bit less powerful, but powerful enough and at a price point that's going to be a lot accepted. I mean, if the PS5 comes out and it's on par, say, in a price as the Xbox One X was when it launched, they're in good shape to sell pretty well, that sort of thing. But I don't know where this SKU is going to land on the shelf, how they're going to market it, who is going to buy it. Because if I'm not even touching it. I got the Xbox One X, and I'm keeping my X because obviously it's the Gears of War console. There's no way in hell I'm getting rid of that puppy. But then if I'm taking my money and I'm upgrading, like why would I want to get the the
Series
Lockhart,
S, yes,
right? Yeah, the Lockhart Series.
I think that's more focused towards the casual market there, Noof, not for us.
Well, exactly. But if they don't come in at an extremely attractive price, that's the point. Price is the top selling feature of anything. You can talk about stats and ray tracing and power this and GPUs that, till you're blue in the face. At the end of the day, most of the systems that get sold are by people on a limited budget. They walk into the store. It's a no-brainer. You walk in to buy an Xbox these days. What fool really wants an Xbox One S if you got the money to go get the X, right? I mean, it's just not much better. But that's where it's going to come in. It's so then what happens to the other consoles and how much are they going to get dropped? And that sort of thing too, because that's the other side. I assume if the Lockhart comes out, we're going to see a serious drop in the price of the X, and the S will probably go down again. And then you know what's going to happen? The people are going to look at those consoles, know that they can play a lot of the same games, and go, "Oh, I'll save an extra $100 and I'll just get the Xbox One S or the X now because that thing is dirt cheap." You know what I mean? So they've got a massive thing on their hands. But as I said, I don't think they care because they're going to. Like I said, they do want to sell systems, but they don't really care which one they sell as long as you can play in Xbox games and you're investing money in their ecosystem. So until we know things for sure, it's hard to say, but the price has to be extremely attractive. Otherwise, they're just spending more money producing this damn thing and putting it out there than they're going to make back on it at all.
I mean, listen, what you're saying makes a lot of sense, but at the same time, Phil Spencer has said publicly that they will not be outpaced by Sony when it comes to price and power. So they understand how important marketing, perfect example, getting Jerret West back, right? They understand how messaging is going to go. Again, getting West to come back and be the end-all voice of marketing, messaging, and everything that goes into selling your new console. So I think they're good there. At the same time, we have to look at, when you look at Sony, you have to tip your cap to them, regardless of whether or not you only play on Xbox. Even if you don't like the brand, you have to admit that what they did in this generation was incredible. Even when third-party games were on multiple platforms, they marketed it in a way where there were actually people that would get into not physical altercations, but they would get into verbal altercations about a particular game being exclusive for the PlayStation, when in fact that wasn't. How many times I've actually heard people talk about that? Like, oh my God, the guy wouldn't believe me that it was on Xbox because of the way they marketed. And these new consoles are at least the Xbox Series S, as we were all donning it, right? Which is the casual console. Again, you said it. It priced at an attractive look. You know, at one of those, I can get in on the new generation and only cost $300. Now, if this APU is 7 or 7.9 teraflops in power, as opposed to the 4 teraflop one that we heard, this is going to put a significant squeeze on Sony, simply because Microsoft could logistically tout that they're going to have the more powerful console. From what we've heard, nothing has been confirmed yet, but Phil said, and Matt Booty said, it's twice the teraflops. Well, currently it's 6 teraflops for the X. I'm not a mathematician, but 6 plus 6 in my book equals 12. Maybe someone else has something different. Whatever. Okay. But if they can come in with a 12 teraflop monster and it's priced at $499, and somehow or another Sony puts their console out, the PS5 at 9.2 at $499, which is what I think the console is going to be, and then Microsoft hits them with this, again, two-pronged attack with a cheaper $299 or even a $399 console, and again, it's going to be out there for the public to devour the stats, and it's going to come in at possibly a slightly less powerful than the PS5. They're going to appeal to two ginormous audiences. Now, the 15%, that's the hardcore, which is everybody here in the chat, which we have almost 300 people watching. All right, we're the hardcore. People on this panel, we're the hardcore. We're going to buy the big box. That's because we want more power. We want the 60 FPS standard. We want all the bell and whistle. So if it's $499, we're buying it. If it's $599, we're buying it. But there is that 85% of the market, and that 85% of the market is 85 million consoles for Sony's PS4. Those are the casuals. They're the reason why Sony has such tremendous success, because the casuals unbelievably outweigh the hardcore. If Microsoft could appeal with a next generation system being touted and marketed as slightly less powerful than the PS5, and it's a $100 to $200 difference, it is going to put, again, a significant amount of pressure on Sony. And when you talk about Game Pass, we keep hearing, and I've heard, and I've seen it on Reddit, where the rumor for these two consoles is that they're going to come with a 3-month free subscription to Xbox Game Pass. And I think that's super smart, because if they do that, for 90 days, you're going to be able to play all of Microsoft's first party. But what's more importantly, I think a more important fact is that if you go out and you spend your $299 or your $399 or even your $599, and you don't already have Game Pass, you are coming home with potentially a dozen new games at launch that are first party, second party, and indies, that all you have to do is download the code, and there you go. You have instant access through Game Pass. That is a big deal. Real quick, Zemi, before I get to you, I have to thank a couple of people. First of all, Spider-Man with the $2 super chat. He says, "Do you think the PS5 is behind schedule? Great show." Man, I mean, you know what, dude? It's funny you should even ask that, because in the last 24 hours, we have heard, and again, this is rumors, folks. So I'm just going based on what I've read online, and you guys and gals have read it too. Supposedly, the Sony PlayStation 5 is currently being reworked, quote unquote. Now, what the hell does that mean? Are they changing stickers? Are they changing the 5 from that they showed us the logo? Or some of the inside parts being changed? I gotta be honest with you, I don't think they could change it right now. I think that the PlayStation 5 is currently in pre-production as we speak. I think they have to, if they were going to make any major changes, sure, they could tweak it. They can overclock something. I don't think they can make any actual physical changes, because this has to go in at least a year, sometimes 18 months in advance, to get these things ready for launch. Remember, they have to build them. They have to make sure that they work. They have to package them. They have to ship them. There's a lot of work here. So I don't know what exactly reworking means, but it's funny. Today is what? The 30th, right? And I think I'm not the only one talking about this. I had reported on one of my earlier shows that Sony was going to have an event, right? So we don't know if that event is going to be on the 5th. Supposedly that's been debunked. Now we're hearing the 29th of February, which is next month. If they get up on stage and they announce that there is a delay into 2021 for the PlayStation 5, the internet is going to implode. I am telling you this right fucking now. If they get up on stage, because they have, listen, there's one thing that I will tell you about Sony is that they're cocky MFs, and we all know this. And when they know they have you by the balls, they strut up and down your sack. And they have been ultra quiet in regards to numbers and and specs. We only know one game. I think it's called Godfall, right? I believe is what it's called. We have one game that's coming out as a year exclusive for the PS5. We have literally no information whatsoever. I gotta be honest with you. I know that they're gonna have an event, but I find it very strange. Now, Zemi, I want to get to you first before I do though. Reform Tone, he drops a $5 super chat and he says this: I think the next generation family of Xbox consoles will go something like this. A 4 teraflop will be a handheld, and I talked about this. I already speculated that I think that Lockhart's a handheld, but I'm probably crazy and wrong for that. And the 8 teraflop would be Lockhart. Yeah, you know what, dude? Having 3 consoles, 3 SKUs, that makes me nervous. I'm going to be honest. I think 2 is more than enough. But Zemi, here's the thing: power matters. It matters now. It's going to matter. It mattered in 2013. It's going to matter in 2025. That's the bottom line. Power is always going to matter. And just like the PC gaming community, we are going to want better power, which means that the hardcore is going to spend the money. But the casual gamers, especially when you talk about price and what you get for your money, Microsoft has the potential to really shock the industry and do something that's never before been done. And, to hear that this APU that's been leaked could potentially be almost 8 teraflop monster, and they somehow could come in, because I put it to this way: if it's four teraflops, it's $300. I think that if it's 8 teraflops or 7.9, between 7 and 7.9, it's going to be $399. But if the PlayStation is 500 and they kind of wedge the PlayStation 5 between both Xboxes, I think that they're in a bit of trouble. What are your thoughts on this leak, dude?
Well, I guess first off, let's actually say what an APU is, because I'm sure there's a lot of people in the audience that have no idea what the crap an APU is. An APU is a processing unit that has built-in graphics. Like usually a lot of graphics or a lot of CPUs have built-in graphics, but what separates like an APU really like a good one, like what AMD has been coming out with in the last couple of years, is that it has better graphics. Like graphics has a graphics chip in it that is good enough to actually play games on. And AMD has been doing some really good leaps forward with like their APUs in the last couple of years. Whenever I was actually thinking about building a PC, I really, really heavily contemplated getting an APU because they are doing really, really good in that. But I decided not to, and I got a graphics card. But if what they're saying is true, and if they did put this into a Xbox, it would, I think honestly, it would, even with the 8 teraflops that you're saying, it would be $299.99 in my opinion. And the reason I say that is because an APU is going to be cheaper. Talking about traditional PC building, getting an APU is going to be cheaper than getting a processor and a graphics card, right? And obviously the console is different. It's a graphics chip and a CPU, but I would still imagine this APU, that Microsoft is, and Microsoft is working with AMD, they're going to get a lower price. I would still imagine the APU is probably going to cost less money than the graphics chip and the processor. So I would imagine it would still be $299.99, and that's what I'm going to say. But talking about power level, it would, it's kind of fluctuating. Like a 980, not tremendously powerful. It's still a good graphics card. If you picked one up and slapped it in your computer, it'd still play games. It's still a good card. But if it was the same power as a 5600 XT, a 57 or a 5600 XT right now in a computer on high settings can do 4K at 40 frames per second. That's basically what you're looking for inside of a computer. I was looking up the benchmarks as I was waiting to speak. And so that is very, very powerful, especially, for a $300 console. And, a big reason why I keep saying, $300 is because you could definitely build a computer for $300 using an APU that's already released from AMD today, right? So, with adding in that Xbox is going to be building a lot of these, they're going to definitely get their cost cut by AMD because they're buying in bulk. I definitely think it's going to be $299. With that being said, though, AMD does make parts for all sorts of things, right? And so it's not surprising that they're coming out with a new APU, but what would be really surprising is if Xbox put it in their system. And the reason I say that is because, it would be a lot of power. Like it really would. Like I think it would honestly be more powerful than what was previously rumored with like the 4 teraflops. And we were all excited about that, right? So with 8 teraflops in this console at $299 would be a huge hit to Sony, in my opinion, because I don't think it would be as powerful as the PS4, but it would definitely give it a run for its money. And for $100 less, adding in that Xbox also has xCloud in their back pocket, they also have the more powerful system, quote unquote. This would be a power move, in my opinion. I don't really know what to say. I'm kind of actually shocked that this is, that this is even a possibility. But, with that being said, this is just a rumor. AMD does do a lot of like PC components, and this could just be an upcoming APU that they're, planning on releasing to, PC builders and manufacturers to build PCs. It may never even actually go into a system. But if it did, it would definitely be enough power, for your buck, and it would definitely be a powerhouse.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm gonna say this. All of this is rumored. We have again, it's been put out there that Sony is going to unveil the PlayStation 5 on February 29th. I'm very excited. Like if you're only an Xbox person, then that information probably doesn't excite you. But because I support multiple consoles proudly and excitedly, then I'm all in for this. I want to see what the PlayStation 5 looks like. I'm hoping because they're not going to E3 that this is going to be a blowout show, meaning that they're going to give us price, they're going to give us release date, they're going to give us information on what games that are exclusively releasing for that launch. We're hearing that Ragnarok is going to be up on stage for them. They have apparently the marketing rights for the next Assassin's Creed, which is surprising because usually Microsoft has that. But obviously they maybe offered more money, and we get a chance to see that running on the PS5. But more interestingly enough, and we'll be talking about this in later shows in upcoming months, is that there's obviously another rumor that Microsoft is, and this has been, I don't want to say confirmed, it's been validated by several industry insiders that Microsoft is going to have their own show in April or May prior to E3. I'm actually hoping that in fact is the case, because at the conference for E3, I want Microsoft to do nothing but games. It's got to be it's got, they got to give Halo gameplay. They got to give us, what Fable, a Fable announcement. Whatever they're going to do up on this stage, it needs to be epic, and it's got to be games, and more games. So I'm hoping they get the Lockhart reveal and possibly the release date out of the way early, so all they do is talk about games. But again, it's seeing how this is going to play out. It's like watching chess right now. Normally, as we've seen in the past, Sony is usually countering what Microsoft does. And they've done it time and time again, which is why their marketing was so strong this generation. Now we're starting to see that Sony is being the one that's out. They're getting outmaneuvered left and right by Microsoft. That's why Microsoft has had and is still holding all of the mind share in gaming, because Sony they have not had an answer for what Microsoft has done since December 12th at the Game Awards. They have had no answer to what Microsoft is doing. That's not a fanboy opinion, folks. That is a goddamn fact. Sony has done nothing outside of a number 5 reveal.
They show off lots of numbers. They're like the Wall Street people. Every 5 minutes, they got numbers.
Numbers are good, but they have not done anything to counter what Microsoft is doing. And I hate to say this, folks. This show better not be canceled. And if they come up on stage and they delay this console, they're in big trouble. I am telling you this right now. I'm not saying that it's generation over. I'm saying that if Microsoft puts out 2 consoles and Sony somehow is reworking whatever the hell that freaking means, and you don't get this PlayStation 5 until 2021, they're in trouble. And of course, I just look over to my left and Red pops up on the screen, which is very rare. And I have to thank him publicly once again. Our very good and very generous community member known as Wilmy Hood drops an outrageous and overly generous $50 super chat. When Wilmy, I honestly don't even know what to say, but thank you very much. He says, stomp your feet and light a match for the hardest working man in podcasting. Well, thanks for saying that, dude. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I enjoy doing this, folks. As a matter of fact, I have officially writing these shows has surpassed me actually playing games. And that's okay. That's perfectly okay, because I love entertaining, and I just love the fact that people are here. We have almost 300 people watching on a Thursday afternoon, and you are enjoying it. Now, we are closing in on the 2-hour mark, and we did get to 3 of the main major topics that we were able to actually, I think we got the 4 topics today. And of course, I want to thank the near 300 people that came out. This has been an amazing show. The topics that we did not get to, I'm going to rework and repurpose for either Breakfast with Boom on Friday, which I'll be making the announcement on who's going to be on that show, as well as Monday evenings, primetime gaming. And of course, we're going to see the return of Cybernox, which I'm very excited about. But more specifically, we have a very strong and powerful guest that will be making his second appearance on my show. And that, of course, is industry friend and very loud member of the RDX panel, Tim Dog, will be joining us on Primetime Gaming this Monday evening at 8 p.m. And I am going to get at least a yell of excitement out of him. Hopefully we can get 2, 3, 4, maybe even 500 people watching. I don't think we're going to get RDX numbers, but hopefully one day we will. And of course, the limo just pulled up, and I know he's been listening in the limo. Arnold Schwarzenegger is joining us once again for his usual monthly visit. Arnold, listen, you've been listening to the show, but I'm interested to see what kind of a gamer are you? Do you like the Xbox brand, or are you a Sony fan?
I don't really care on Boom exactly where I play the games. I want to play all the best games wherever they are. And usually with me, I like the consoles. I like them big. Xbox is great that way because the consoles have always been very big, very massive. Sometimes when I'm not close to my weights and I can't get out there, what I do is I pick up the old, you remember the old Xbox? That thing was like 20 pounds. I would pick it up and I would curl it with my arms and it was great. I get my workout in. I play the games plus the massive controller. You had that, the great big controller back then. So, the PlayStation controller is a little bit small. It's hard to fit it in their hands. But I like gaming wherever it is. And of course, if the games, like shout out to Ubisoft because they put in the Predator back in the Ghost Recon game, and now they've got the Terminator in the new Ghost Recon game. So make sure that you go out there and you play your games. That's the main thing, is that you get out there and you play it and you're having fun, and that's what it's all about. I really don't care what the console is, but the more Arnold that you get out there, the better it's going to be. It's awesome. I can't wait to play the games. I'm glad to be here. It's always fun to listen to you from the limo and all that stuff. There's no bullshit in here, and I love it. It's a straight-ass podcast. It gives it to you straight, just like the Terminator, coming for you. So make sure, guys, you all take care. And now I'm good to go to catch the chopper.
Okay. Well, listen, thanks so much for taking the time. And like I always say, your check will be in the mail. So look for that. Definitely appreciate you being here. Of course, again, folks, this has been another great show. Almost 300 people watching. I cannot thank you enough for coming out here and supporting Double Barrel Gaming, supporting me on YouTube the way you guys and gals do. And of course, I could not do this show without having amazing guests. And I'm going to start with our special guest, Noof Nukem. First of all, Noof, thank you so much for being here. I'm glad I got you early enough to send you the message to have you on as a guest, and that you just happen to be off this particular day. Do me a favor, tell everyone where they can follow you, because you are like a socialite when it comes to social media, especially on Twitter and on Xbox Live for that matter. You're always out there, toking the fires to get people to party up and play on Xbox Live. And more importantly, you have a lot of stuff going on with your channel. You brought back an old favorite. You're working with a fantastic community member in Primal Eve. Do me a favor, tell everyone about those two things.
First of all, as always, and not to toot your horn, but it's always an honor to be on your podcast, Boom.
Oh, thanks,
every
dude.
time I get the invite, I get super excited. I'm glad to be here. It doesn't work out very often because I normally work most weekdays. A lot of the times my days off sort of usually on Sundays or Mondays, that sort of thing. So, Thursdays, Fridays, Wednesdays are usually pretty difficult for me, that sort of thing. But I'm glad to be here. Yes, I was really happy to bring back Gaming After Dark with the amazing Primal Eve. We had a great show last week. It was fantastic. So thanks for, all your support, for shouting those things out. Our podcast, like I said, for those who don't know, it's not much different than anybody else's podcast. It's generally just a duo kind of thing. We'll have guests from time to time. I'm sure you'll be on there here eventually, Boom.
Yep.
But it's like I said, we have a little bit more, I guess we go off the rails a little bit more, so to speak. And I don't recommend you having your kids listen to it most of the time because it can get, as Boom usually says, a little bit raunchy, a little bit adult sometimes with our humor. Me and Primal are much alike in a way we think. We're old school gamers at heart, but we like to have a little bit of fun and that sort of stuff and get a little bit raunchy. So, but it's all good stuff, man. Like I said, glad to be here. Can't wait to be back on the podcast again. So check that one out it's on Monday nights. Actually, I think I'm going to switch back over to Tuesday nights. I don't even know why I went to Mondays, but I might bring it back to Tuesdays. It's just an easier night for me because I don't have so much on the go. But it's generally at 10 o'clock Eastern. So we try to get going shortly after you wrap up, but that's kind of difficult because sometimes your podcast runs a bit late, but generally we try to wait till yours is winding down and then we fire it up. So good stuff, man. Thanks for shouting out. It's good to be here. Shout out to all the chat too. You guys are awesome. I see Wilmy is in the chat with that massive super chat again. The dude's always dropping coin like crazy. But yeah, man, go catch me. Like I said, it's Noof Nukem on Xbox. It's Noof Nukem 76 on PlayStation. I play on both of those consoles. It's always a lot of fun. Like trying to get a community thing going again for this weekend, and I'm always very active on social media, as you guys know. I probably spend a little too much time on there at times, but hit me up, send me an invite, send me a message. Like I said, I'm pretty friendly and pretty accessible. I like to be out there and I love to game with everybody, man. I'm just going to find some common ground and get out there and do it. Let's rock and roll. But anyway, man, thanks for being here. Sorry to have the outro be kind of long.
No, that's okay. Listen, this is a conversational podcast. This is what we do. Real quick, before I get to Zemi on the outro, JD Gamer not only drops a $5 super chat, he drops some serious information. He says Sony can rework memory size, memory bandwidth, overclock up to 10%, the CPU/GPU, and add a processor chips like the Saturn did late in development. I didn't actually know that the Saturn did that. That's new information, man. The Saturn, I love the Saturn. But you know what? Listen, again, when the specs are out, we're all going to be doing shows and videos on who has the bigger specs and what does it actually mean at the end of the day. And I cannot wait until we get all of this information. Zemi, I want to thank you once again for being here, dude. Obviously, I look forward to working with you, particularly each and every Thursday, because you are a diehard Xbox fan. You do get excited about the topics that I put together. And of course, we do, at the end of the day, have hashtag fun doing these shows. Do me a favor, tell everyone where they can follow you, but more importantly, check out your YouTube channel.
Well, thank you so much, Bim, and it's always a pleasure to come on this show. You always set up fantastic topics. I look forward to it every single week. So thank you so much for writing all the topics and setting up the show as you always do. If you guys enjoyed my opinions, definitely check out my YouTube channel. It's called Zimmy Games. I do a bunch of gaming content there, Let's Plays, gaming news, tutorials, all sorts of things. So definitely check that out if that interests you. Also, check me out on Twitter at Zimmy Games. My DMs are always open. I always look forward to talking to any of the community members, about any gaming subjects. So always feel free to throw me a DM if you ever want to. And then also make sure to follow me, because I always post whenever I find a big news story that I want to share, or I just make jerky. I recently posted a picture because I just made beef jerky for the very first time. And I posted a delicious looking piece of jerky up.
It looked quite tasty.
Oh, it was delicious. There's not very much left, but it was really good. And then I also post whenever I upload a video and all that sorts of stuff. So make sure to follow me on Twitter as well. And thank you so much, Bim.
Well, listen, thanks again for being here. Certainly, you might want to share that recipe on Twitter so other people could make this spicy, tangy jerky that you were talking about before we went live. But listen, once again, I want to thank everyone for being here. It really does make me smile from ear to ear that we have 300 plus people, or near 300 plus people watching today. And the support that I've gotten in 2020 has been nothing short of it's just incredible. I've seen numbers and gains in subscribers that I've never seen before. I'm doing YouTube now 2 years, so this is very exciting for the channel. If you are, of course, new, you are welcome to join any show you want. I hope that you do hit that subscribe button on your way out of here if you're not already subscribed. And if you enjoyed today's show, do not hesitate to just take 2 seconds and hit that like button. Trust me, it will not hurt. I promise you. And again, I really want to say this without joking. If you are not enjoying the podcast and you feel that I need to do better, hit me up in the DM. Let's talk about it. Don't leave, a nasty comment that has no substance, because I'm not going to pay attention. I will not answer it. But I encourage you to hit the thumbs down button and tell me that I need to do better. But with that said, I want to wish everyone an amazing Thursday afternoon. Please, 2 things I like to tell everyone as we get on out of here. 1, treat others how you want to be treated. And more importantly, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, and I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.